So Piaget concludes and says, if all knowledge is always in a state of development and consists in proceeding from one state to a more complete and efficient one, evidently it is a question of knowing this development and analyzing it with the greatest possible accuracy. Okay, so Piaget figures you're a information foraging machine, so to speak, and the process that you engage in while you're foraging for information and then figuring out what to do with it is typical to human beings, and there's some constancy of structure across human beings. Okay, so that's the first idea. It isn't that we all do it in a different way, even though there's individual variation, obviously. The other sort of fundamental postulate of constructivism, especially the Piagetian version of constructivism, is that you sort of build yourself from the bottom up, starting with your body. So this is one of the things about Piaget's theory that's unbelievably sophisticated, I think. So when people were first developing models of artificial intelligence, they thought they'd be able to develop machines that sort of modeled the world, and then figured out how to act in the world, sort of abstractly, and then would, after they figured out how to act in the world, would then act in the world. But that proved to be impossible, as you can tell, because we don't have, ambulatory robots that could like bus tables at a restaurant, which turns out to be, by the way, a very complex job. Fast mathematical operations, computer can handle that easily, but bussing a table, it's like no computer's smart enough to do that. So that's pretty peculiar. But it turned out after like 40 years of investigation that you couldn't build computers that would operate as independent robots by teaching them to model the world, and then by having them model the potential action that they were going to undertake, and then by implementing it. That did not work, partly because modeling the world is way more complicated than anybody ever suspected. It's like infinitely more complicated. And so some robotics engineers, such as Rodney Brooks, who worked at MIT, started building robots from the bottom up. He made these little mindless robots that really didn't even have a central processor that were action-oriented. So like the first things he built were these little insect-like things that could skitter away from light. That's all they could do. Turn on a light, poof, they'd go find some dark. And it's as if, so imagine the world to that robot was a binary place. It was either a light place or a dark place. And then you might say, well, what did light or dark mean to this little robot? And then you have to ask yourself, well, what does meaning mean? And that's a very good question. It's one that Piaget answers. Meaning means, to that little robot, move to a different place. So light to that robot meant move to a different place. So what the robot, in a sense, was doing was transforming one form of information, light versus dark, into another form, which was skitter away. And so I love that, because it's not easy to understand what meaning means until you relate it to the body. And so Piaget's fundamental proposition is that the elements of your understanding are not perceptual abstractions. In fact, there's even elements of understanding that underlie your perceptual abstractions that are more fundamental. And what those are, essentially, are sensory motor skills, things you do with your body. It's a lovely idea. It's extremely profound. And I think it's absolutely correct. It does wreak havoc with the idea of disembodied intelligence, however, because for Piaget, and also for Rodney Brooks, who is responsible, by the way, just so you know, some of you have seen Big Dog. Have you seen Big Dog? Look up DARPA, D-A-R-P-A. How many of you have seen Big Dog? How many of you are terrified by Big Dog? Yes. Big Dog is this robot that's being developed by the US Army that is about this big, and it's four-legged. It's got a head. And it can run like faster than you. And it can run in snow, and it can run on ice, and it can run up hills. And if you kick it, it balances and stands back up. And hypothetically, it's going to be used to transport like the heavy things that soldiers have to carry. But, don't believe that. That's a stupid idea. Once these things can ambulate by themselves, and they can already follow each other, because now they have visual systems, arming them is going to be a very simple matter. And so the probability that we'll have unbelievably super fast robots that can shoot you in 10 years is like, to me, as far as I can tell from the development, is absolutely certain. I have a friend who's a computer engineer, and he's a really good one, and he said, you know how in science fiction movies, sometimes when those robots shoot at you, they miss? He said, when the robots shoot at you, not only will they shoot at where you are, but they'll shoot at the 6 places that they calculate you're most likely to dart to, and they will never miss. So that's a lovely thing to think about. So